Show with David J. Maloney. This week, David talks with Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter John Parr. And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome to everyone at home, and I would normally say our studio audience to the weekly show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. I say normally because we'd usually shoot the show before a small studio audience at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, but we are still shooting from home due to coronavirus concerns. We do hope to gain clearance to get back to our live-to-tape shows very soon. So, April is Sexually Transmitted Disease Awareness Month. According to a new report, rates of STDs amongst the elderly are soaring. To give you an idea of how bad it is, more seniors now have the clap than the clapper.
Clap on!
April is also National Cannabis Awareness Month. According to a new study, smoking too much marijuana can damage short-term memory, not to mention short-term memory. Speaking of marijuana, our local neighborhood barber was just arrested for selling drugs. I'd been a customer of his for almost 8 years. I honestly had no idea he was a barber. One of President Biden's dogs pooped on the White House carpet. They say dogs do things like that to mark their territory by covering up a prior scent. And surely enough, he went exactly where Eric Trump used to go. Oh, and Hunter Biden's memoir is now on bookstore shelves. The book includes a foreword by Hunter's mentor, Charlie Sheen. In London, Texas, a 41-year-old female English teacher was arrested for hooking up with a 16-year-old male student. Sadly, the boy was left with a broken heart and a dangling participle. No, let's try that again. In London, Texas, a 41-year-old female teacher was arrested for hooking up with a 16-year-old male student. Fortunately for the suspect, she's an English teacher, so she should have no problem completing a sentence. No, maybe third time's a charm. In London, Texas, a 41-year-old female English teacher was arrested for hooking up with a 16-year-old male student. Prosecutors say her sentence will be diagrammed. And lastly, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is still dealing with increasing accusations of sexual harassment and bullying. On a positive note, he now qualifies for membership at Mar-a-Lago. On tonight's show, we've got the man who created the anthem of a generation for countless kids in the 80s with his Grammy-nominated hit song, St. Elmo's Fire, and whose songs continue to leave a lasting impact, reaching 21 million streams for just 2020. He's a legend in the world of music, and I think you'll enjoy our little chat. Here with us tonight is John Parr. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You know, in some way, you're a lot like me. Just a prisoner, and you're trying to break free.
Our featured guest tonight is a musician, singer, songwriter, known for his hit song Naughty Naughty in 1984, his 1985 Grammy-nominated #1 hit single Man in Motion, or as most people know it, St. Elmo's Fire, and his many other motion picture themes, including songs for 3 Men and a Baby, The Running Man. Here to talk about his life, music, why he's still not slowing down, is singer-songwriter John Parr. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, David, how you doing?
We are doing just fine. So, John, most people know you from your hit songs and music videos when MTV used to do videos. But I've learned you've been doing music since you were around 12. Was there a lot of music in your home growing up?
Well, my mum and dad weren't musical, but before that, actually, David, I was kind of performing with the guitar probably in school, about 8 or 9 years old. But yeah, I was just captured by the 60s and all that fantastic music.
So how young were you when your first band, The Silence, started touring Europe? How did you guys kind of first find success at that age?
The Silence, I was 12 years old, and we just played like the local area in northern England. My dad was the manager, and he used to drive the truck, and he was a hard taskmaster. But we started going into Europe probably in my later teens. And then the kind of band shifted, as they always do, and members come and go. But I did 150,000 miles with my dad behind the wheel before I was 15 in England.
So talk to me about your group Ponder's End. I just started learning about the working man's clubs while researching for this interview, and the whole thing kind of fascinates me. I mean, I imagine our audience here in the States won't know much about it, so I was kind of curious about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of an equivalent, but basically these were clubs that if guys worked in a factory or in a mine, there would be a social club for the guy or the woman and their family. And there would be shows on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Bingo, and if you're familiar with bingo, where you know, or housey. That was a big deal. So the act would come on, then there would be the bingo, then there would be the act. But it was like Vegas very badly, very bad Vegas.
So I had no idea that you wrote songs for Meatloaf too, no?
That was the beginning of it. Yeah, I played live for so long, and the truck eventually blew up for the last time. And I was married then. My wife said, you know, why don't you just write songs? I'll pay the bills. And that's what we did for 3 or 4 years. And I got a little publishing deal, and the publisher started sending the songs out, and the first kind of hook was Meatloaf. And I recorded 2 or 3 things for him before I met him, and I could mimic him pretty good. So I recorded them as he would sing. And then I met up with him, gave him, it was a cassette in those days, and he loved it. And within a month, I was living in Connecticut with him and his family, making the new record.
What was the process like of getting your first solo recording deal? I mean, how did that happen? We just spoke with J.J. French of Twisted Sister, and he recounted just how hard it was for them as a band to finally get there. What was that journey like for you?
I used to call it being geographically knackered. Coming from the north of England, the town I came from, nobody ever escaped, really. But I had this dream, and I just kept pushing and pushing. The beginning was the Meatloaf thing. We have this saying, you wait for a bus and you're there in the rain, and then all of a sudden 3 buses come at once. That was my career. Meatloaf, I'm with him making the record. My manager is in New York talking with Ahmed Erdogan, playing him some of my demos. And Ahmed signed me. And so simultaneously, I had this 2-bus ride. And then Toto asked me to go out on the road, and I was so, such a fan of Toto. So within a year, I went from kind of what we call coppering up, kind of saving money to buy food, to suddenly being with, an international artist, a major record deal, and touring with my heroes. It was a crazy year.
So you got your deal, and you write your first major hit, Naughty Naughty. How did you first find out that was going to be a hit? Does a moment or a phone call or something or hearing it the first time on the radio, does a story like that stick out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was the 11th song on the album. A song got bumped to put that song on. It was just a little riff we used to warm up on in the studio. And Ahmed Erdogan said, John, you got to write a song about sex sells. And I thought, well, okay, I'm at the knee of the master. So I thought about this kind of witty lyric. And then Trevor Horn was really happening in England with all the kind of digital sampling then. Digital had just began. And so I wanted to make a record that was kind of mainstream rock, but had all this kind of arty nouveau sounds. And I fought Atlantic for that record because they wanted a song called Naughty Naughty, Magical, to be the first single, as a song I wrote with Meatloaf. And I just believed I knew Naughty Naughty had the legs. And, that record was released at the worst time, like November, December, 84. All the record labels were triple bonusing. So that meant if the record plugger could get it on a P1 station, they'd get a triple bonus. I had no bonuses. The Atlantic were not paying bonuses to the pluggers. So that song would be 95 in the charts, 105, 93. It was agonizing. But I just believed in it. And really, the song did it. It was on the charts for 4 or 5 months and kind of did the job of an album for me, David.
Well, and I remember the video, and I think before the blue steel look was even invented, I think you had that look in that video. You had that. There were so many pans of you just having the look, in that video.
Yeah, I'd always loved film, and so I insisted that all my videos were shot on 35mm Panavision. So it was in the days of big budgets, and so a lot of the videos have got that kind of filmic look, and I didn't really get to have a lot of control of them in the early days, but my control was really the look, the overall look, and we spent a lot of money, which I'm still paying for some of those videos. But yeah, thank you for that. It was a little my first adventure.
So here's what I need to do. We need to go to a quick commercial break, and then I want to come back and I want to talk to you about St. Elmo's Fire and some of the things you got going on right now. Can you stick around till after the break?
I can.
Awesome. We'll be right back with John Parr. And we are back with John Parr. So on the back of your tour with Toto, at the end of that tour, David Foster asks you to write and record a song for the cult classic movie St. Elmo's Fire. What was the process of writing a song like that?
Toto brought me up to speed a little bit with David. Fortunately, I didn't know too much about his incredible track record, but Toto briefed me a bit. So I went forearmed. When I arrived at this little studio, it's called the Lighthouse. There's just David there. There were just tapes everywhere and CDs. He was exhausted. And he was doing his first movie that he was a composer of, but he was also simultaneously doing a soundtrack album with 10 original songs, with 10 original artists. It's like lunacy, really. So when I got there, he said to me, "Look, John, I know I've asked you to write, but will you sing this?" And he played me this song, and it was like, not great. And I said, "I really think we could do better." And he said, "I'm exhausted, man. Please just sing." I said, let's just have an hour. He said, "Okay." So we went in the control room. There was just like a piano there and a drum machine. And we wrote a song, probably 10 minutes. I thought, wow, this is great. He said, "We can do better." I thought, okay. So off we go. Another 10 minutes. Wow, this is as eager as we can do better. Third time in, St. Elmo's Fire. Got the great tune, got it all done, probably in a couple of hours. And I was due to come in and sing it the next day. But I could not get inspired by the text of the movie. I came from the north of England. I left school at 15. This was a movie about, Silver Spoon kids, collegiate thing, completely out of my comfort zone. So David said, "Look, there's nothing to do with the movie. I'm going to show you this little videotape of a local news station in Vancouver, David's hometown. But there was this film of this kid," he said, "and this kid came in the studio a couple of weeks ago, and he really inspired me." So he puts the video cassette in, and as this guy comes up on screen, like I am now, you can just see him kind of from the waist up. And he's a beautiful-looking young guy, looked like a young Kennedy. And I realized very quickly that he's in a wheelchair, and he says, 2 years ago, I was living the life, and then I had a car crash, and broke my back. And he said, "I realize you break your arm, you break your leg, you're in a cast for 8 weeks. You break this one in your back and you're in a chair for the rest of your life." He said, "I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to get in this chair and I'm going to wheel it around the world on the Man in Motion tour." And then the video starts running in the TV station of this like truck, just an old truck with a spare wheelchair on the front. And it says, "Rick Hansen, Man in Motion, World Tour." Man, the goosebumps on my neck. So, wow, I'm going to write this story. So I went back to the hotel and I wrote the story of what I imagined, because he was only 2 months in. This was going to take 2 years. So I wrote the lyric about what I imagined his journey would be like. But I knew the film company were going to kick it. So I made it so that when I'm talking about the pair of wheels, they're going to think it's Demi Moore's Jeep. For once in his life, a man has his time. They think that's when Emilio gets the girl. But it's entirely about a guy wheeling across a desert, up a mountainside. And St. Elmo's Fire, this freak of nature burning in the sky, and he's wheeling to the embodiment of his dream. I came in the next day and David said, "You're crazy. They're never going to swallow it." And I said, "And I want to call it Man in Motion." And he went, "They'll never swallow it." The beauty was the film was being dubbed on the Monday, so they had no time. So the song just went bosh into the never. If you look in the movie, it's just in sections. It's never in its entirety. But Rick went on to do the prophecy. He wheeled around the world 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. Raised 18 million for spinal research, and every time I sing that song, I tell the story. We're now at $2.75 billion raised for the Rick Hansen Foundation. Not all from St. Elmo's Fire. We just helped it along. It's the theme tune, but some great people. And, you know, the aim is that the wheelchair will end up in a museum and nobody will ever be in one. That was my little part.
That's amazing. So why do you think that particular song took off like it did? Was it because of because part of it seems like the movie would give it the boost, but at the same point in time, the message is so very important.
It's a funny thing with songs. I liken it to if you've ever built a bonfire in the garden, you've got all your paper and everything, and you keep lighting matches and it just won't go. And then suddenly it catches light and poof. Now that match and that paper was that movie, and the Brat Pack being the darlings of the day. But you know, that movie came and went pretty quickly. It only became a cult thing in the last few years. But I can remember going to radio stations in England, and they'd go, "Oh, we don't know whether to put it on the playlist." But then we saw you and Tina together, and we thought it was interesting. I stopped Tina getting to '1 with "We Don't Need Another Hero." So almost stopped again. So it became a great story. But that's how kind of faint-hearted it was. But in America, it obviously was straight on the radio. But here we are 30-odd years later. And, you know, people get married to it. People live their, moments in their lives.
Did you ever get to meet I know that, well, let me back up for a second. So the song gets nominated for a Grammy. Did you, at any point in time, end up meeting the actual cast of the film?
Yes. Yeah, it's not one of those where they use footage from the film alone. They actually rebuilt the St. Elmo's Fire bar after it had been taken down for them. But they rebuilt it, and the whole cast came, and we shot the bar with me playing in the bar. So
coming off that, like you said, you toured with Tina Turner on the Private Dancer tour. What do you remember most about that tour?
I watched every show. I would go on, do my set, get changed, wait for the lights to go down, then I'd sneak out and watch every show, and the master. So I was just learning at the knee of the master. She was really elevated to those shows very quickly. When I was booked to do that Private Dancer tour, Tina was still honoring corporate gigs at Holiday Inns for corporations and whatever, traveling in the truck with a van. And within 3 months, she's on her own jet, playing to 20,000 people.
When you get the opportunity, because you've also done songs for other movies, when you get the opportunity to do a gig like that, do they give you like the plot line of the movie ahead of time? What do they give you ahead of time to kind of give you some guidance or inspiration so you're not just writing out of thin air?
I always like to get with the director if I can. And if they just tell me the story, they're just so full of it themselves. And I get sometimes little bits that just, I feel I'm the sixth horse on the team. I'm the guy that's going to try and, tell that story in one song. That's why they call me Mr. Soundtrack for a bit, because I think I did 10 of these movies back, in 2 years. I remember with The Running Man, they just took me to the preview theater and they just showed me the rough cut. And halfway through the movie, I got it.
I know you've got new music on the horizon. Tell us about that.
I got a record that's kind of old school, but kind of new school. It's real songs, real people playing on it. I'm about 3/4 of the way off finishing it. We just made a movie about the making of, and it's joyous.
So where can our audience go to follow you now?
JohnParr.net is the website. It's a pretty good website. It shows a lot of, what I'm up to, what I've been doing with the American military. I've been over in America doing a lot for the USO and for USA Cares. I made an album with all the money going to those charities.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, John Parr.
God bless you, David. This has been a lovely hour.
That is our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. A special thanks to John Parr for joining us. Taking us home through the credits tonight is our featured guest, John Parr, with Never Surrender.
The blood of a country's on the street tonight. There's madness all around. Their children are hungry while their mothers weep. I can't forget the sound. We are lost and alone. Doesn't anybody care? Keep us safe, free from home. They say this silent prayer. All we need is just a few good men to set our country free. All we need is just a few good men. Then once again, our children will live free. The heart of a country's beating strong and brave in every young man's breast. He'll fight like a lion for what he believes. No one shall live abreast. All for one for all. I still hear their battle call. They stood proud, they stood tall. They won't let our nation fall. All we need is just a few good men to set our country free. All we need is just a few good men. And once again, our children will be free. Soldier on through adversity. We must all be brave. Truth and honor defeat uncertainty. We need someone